And yes, SEO is important. Yes, traffic is important, conversion rates and all those fun things that we marketers pay attention to, and their numbers and they're fun and they're exciting. But what's cool is if you build for Superfans, all those numbers are going to increase anyway.
What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jada Selner, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now, let's get cozy and start today's episode. Do you want to grow an engaged community for your business? The type of community who is the first to buy every single product you create. If you want to learn the action steps that you can take to start attracting and nurturing your superfans right now, then this episode is for you. In today's conversation, I get cozy with my friend and mentor, Pat Flynn. Pat is a father, husband, entrepreneur, and host of the Smart Passive Income and Ask Pat podcast, which have earned a combined total of over 50 million downloads and has been featured in publications such as the New York Times and Forbes. I've personally been a guest on the Smart Passive Income twice, talking about how I grew our Simple Green Smoothies email list from 0 to 200,000 subscribers in 1 year, and also how I made a pivot to exit my business partnership to follow my calling, that heart whisper, that nudge that just moves you in another direction where you're ready to really deepen into that next chapter of your business, of your life. So I will include links to those episodes in the show notes if you head over to jadaselner.com/169. Now, Pat is also a keynote speaker, an advisor for companies like LeadPages and ConvertKit, and a Wall Street Journal bestselling author of Will It Fly? Let Go. And I'm super excited about his newest book, all about superfans, which we are going to dive deeper into today. Now, Pat was also a guest on the Lead with Love podcast, one of my first guests back on episode 108. And as I mentioned in my previous conversation with Pat, I discovered Smart Passive Income in 2011 when I was learning about building a business online. I wanted to build a business where I could have my daughter by my side. I had already had a brick and mortar business and just wanted to leverage income in a way where I could have flexibility in my time and the locations of where I was. And he really inspired me to take action and finally write my first ebook so I could turn a heart project into a cash project. And my path to building a business online and selling ebooks, because I finally finished my ebooks, for him encouraging me to finish it through just a downloadable PDF that he had, I was able to create over $1 million in sales in 2 years selling digital PDF ebooks products. Obviously, there is so much more inside just a PDF and ebook when we're creating transformation for people's lives. But it's just wild to think that just 8 years ago, Pat was just a guy online sharing information that I found valuable to now being a friend, a coach, and someone I speak on the same stages with around the world. We've spoken at events in Australia and Utah, and it's just so inspiring to see the power of mentorship in so many different ways. So my invitation to you is when you're looking at mentors, whether you're reading a book or a PDF or taking a course or following, someone's webinar, whatever that is, I think the biggest gift that you can give to your mentors, no matter how they serve you, whether they're an actual coach that you talk to on the phone or you're just reading something from them, is to take imperfect action on what they share with you, because that's where I think the possibility and opportunities really lie. And I've actually had Pat now. He has been my business coach in the past. And so it's just a really, really cool full circle. And I'm so thankful to have another conversation. So let's get cozy with Pat. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Jada, how are you?
Good. I'm super excited for us to have a second conversation, because actually it was over a year ago that you were on the Lead with Love podcast, and I was probably like shaking in my boots.
You're a young podcaster.
Yes. And in our first conversation, you talked about what leading with love means to you, and it was about serving first, and how you shared that your earnings are a byproduct of how well you serve your audience. So if anyone wants to go a little bit deeper into that, they can head over to episode 108. But I'm excited to dive even deeper into what it means to be a super fan. But before we go into that conversation, you just made an epic event of actually building your audience in a very inspiring way with Flynn Con 1. Yeah. How are you feeling post event right now? And tell me a little bit about Flynn Con 1.
I'm still riding the high of the event, and I'm also very thankful for you, Jada, because for everybody listening, we were supposed to schedule this the day after that event happened, and then I didn't realize that I would have been so tired. So Jada was kind enough to be flexible and have us schedule this a few days later. But I'm still coming off the event. And the event was a community event for my people, for my tribe, known as Team Flynn, hence the event named FlynnCon. And we had about 400 entrepreneurs come and fly into San Diego. And I tried to make it a very unique experience for people, especially those who have been to conferences before, who often get burned out or who feel lonely or just that they don't belong. And these are actually kind of the strategies that I talk about in my book called Superfans. And one of the chapters is about creating an environment that you could bring your community together so that they can not just see you and you can see them, but so they could find each other. And that was probably the best feedback I got from the event, was like, wow, I finally was able to find people just like me, the family entrepreneur who, and there was actually a lot of people who brought their kids and their teens too. And we had some programming specifically for them as well to learn, separate from the main area. But I couldn't have asked for a better first event. Like my team and I, we were expecting things to go wrong, but nothing went wrong. And it just absolutely exceeded our expectation. And we already sold, I think, 80 tickets to next year already. And we're just a year away still. And so it seems like we're creating something very unique in the space for people to not just come and learn all the strategies. It's not even about that. We baked in longer breaks. We baked in less content so that people can go deeper with those things and find each other and discuss. The weekend was also full of surprises throughout all the 2.5 days. And my wife got to speak on stage, which was cool. And she's not that kind of person. And she stepped out of her comfort zone to do that. And everybody finally got to see the real reason why my business is a success, and our family too. And that's her. And then my kids got on stage as well on the second day. And my son, who's 9, just very confidently was able to take the stage and deliver a really cool 6-minute keynote that he practiced. And my daughter came on as a guest while my son and I were on stage too. So to give them opportunities and to show and lead by example that families can, yes, build a business, but also grow closer together is kind of the goal there too. So just thank you for all the kind words. And for anybody who was there, just bless you. Thank you for trusting us, because honestly, we launched FlynnCon without really any details behind it. And it's the Superfans who came and they made it great.
Yeah. I'm just the part with the 6-minute keynote. I have to know, did you help your son prepare for that keynote? And what was that process like?
Great question. I'm going to be very honest with you. He built that presentation in Google Slides for a school presentation, because at the school that he's at, which is very entrepreneurial, which is really cool, all the students do about 1 presentation per month. And this was just one of those presentations that was my favorite. And I had to convert it from Google Slides to Keynote. And then at that point, I also changed the font that he used to the event font that I was using on the slides, but everything else was all him. And he created the whole thing, and he was able to progress through the slides with the little clicker in his hand. And, it looked gigantic because he's just a little kid. It was like so cute. And it was 99% him. And I'm so proud of him for that.
I love that. I just started homeschooling my daughter for her 6th grade year, and she wasn't doing this in her school, but part of our process, I would give her an assignment of make a slide presentation on, a woman in Black history. And she would pick someone from this book called That's What She Said. And she just went and figured it out. Like, she didn't ask me about Keynote or anything. She just went into Google Slides right away. But there's such power in, empowering kids to learn how to present and also integrate technology and communicating their ideas. So I love that he's been making those slides on a monthly basis, and just an inspiration for all of us to be able to share that with our kids too.
Absolutely. My favorite comment, I posted a picture of him. If you go to my Instagram at Pat Flynn, you'll see a really nice photo of him like smiling, waving at the audience, or with a clicker in his hand. And I saw a comment from somebody who's like, oh my gosh, he's 9. I'm 30 and I'm scared to get behind the microphone for my podcast. What am I doing?
Yes. Oh, it's so cool. And, one conversation that we had, I was actually in your SBI accelerator for a year, which was a really amazing experience. Again, you bringing like the hardcore super fans together in a small group of, ambitious entrepreneurs, having mastermind hot seats, sharing their business ideas and strategies. And one conversation that we had in La Jolla in our mansion, I always say it's like your mastermind retreats are like the real world. Yeah, not your house, but one day.
We rent it out for all the accelerator students to come in. Everybody gets a room, and then we just jam on everybody's business for a few days. And it was just so great to not only help you directly, but also for you to help others too. I mean, that's what this situation's about.
Yeah. And it felt like the real world for entrepreneurs. Like, you just had that. We all
without the drama.
One roof. Yeah. No drama. It was just really good food, board games. But there was a conversation that you and I had about what you want to be known for, and, kind of making those pivots and those transitions over time. And when you first started, you were kind of known as the green, like the exam guy, the Green Academy exam guy, to then the smart passive income guy. Like, can you just walk me through your iterations of the person? Like, you were the go-to person for this, because now I see this shift in kind of being like the podcast guy and the super fans. And so I'm just curious, what those transitions, like who you were when you first started, and what it's been like to make those transitions over time.
Yeah. In business, I've been doing this for 11 years. I've realized that the goal is to become somebody or some market's favorite. Everything is so much easier when you position it that way, where you can be, for a particular niche or a particular group of people, their go-to resource. Whenever somebody goes, oh, who should I go to for this? They always mention you or your website or your product or service or what have you. And when I started out after getting laid off in the architecture world, I then built a business to help people pass the LEAD exam, which was an exam about green buildings and green design and those kinds of things, hence the Green Exam Academy website. And that's what I was known for. And I got known for that, not just by having a website and posting information online, but actually having real life interactions online in forums. I was in forums for 2 to 3 hours a day, just answering people's questions, becoming a resource. That's how I got known before anybody found me on my website. And then, of course, naturally, you start to go into these forums, and over time, I would see people go, oh, I have a question about this LEAD exam thing. And then somebody else would reply and go, oh yeah, that Pat will help you with that. He usually comes in a few times a day here to help us out. He'll give you the best answer. So that was really cool to become known as that. And so when I came out with a product or came out with a recommendation for another product that wasn't mine for an affiliate offer, it was very easy for people to listen and actually take those offers because I was known as that. And then at the end of 2008, I created smartpassiveincome.com, which was the website where I just wanted to share everything about what I was learning with this other business, because this whole world of internet marketing to me was just unknown. The only world of internet marketing I knew was this sort of scammy, scummy, sort of snake oil car salesman-y type feeling. And here I was actually doing internet marketing, and I didn't have to feel that way. I didn't have to do it in an icky way. So Smart Passive Income was created, and I started to share things on there. And so I started to become known quite quickly as the guy who was posting income reports on that website, because I was sharing not just the tactics and what I was doing, what was going right, what was going wrong, but I was also sharing how much money I was making in each of those businesses, because I started to create more businesses too and share them publicly. And part of that sort of income report was just my overall feeling of, let's just share everything. Let's be transparent. Let's be authentic. And if a person wants to follow me, great. They'll follow me because of exactly who I am and what I'm doing, not because of some fake thing I'm putting up or because it's not working for them or I just don't jive with them. Like, you follow me and here's all of me. And so I started to become known as this guy in the internet marketing entrepreneurial space as not just the income report guy, but the guy who was authentic and transparent about what was going on. And I often would share my failures, and those failures always became a great lesson for everybody. And what was even better was when I publicly shared those failures and then I did something to bounce back from those failures and eventually end up in a win of some kind. It was always very inspirational for people. I was even featured in Forbes magazine alongside Tony Hsiu and Richard Branson and many others as sort of transparent business owners on the web, which was like, I was like, what am I doing in this list? But, it was kind of crazy. And then around 2011, niche sites and little websites to help people like create a one-off website to solve a problem with like an offer of some kind was getting really popular. And for a while, that was all I was doing. I started a website called securityguardtraininghq.com, as well as a food truck website. And I became known as the guy who could teach you how to build a website, even in a space that you don't know much about, and become the expert curator in that space to help you build a resource and make money through advertising or selling products or connecting with other products through an affiliate program. And I became known as sort of the niche site guy, which was kind of neat for a while. And then I really found that was a little difficult to just continue and to manage, because Google was very finicky, and it still is, but it was changing its algorithms all the time. And the large amount of that strategy was related to what Google wanted at the time in order to rank higher in search engines. So I kind of pushed that aside, and I started to become known as somebody, I wanted to become known as a great speaker. I got training for speaking. I started speaking in late 2011, and I started to really dive into that into 2013, 2014. And I just wanted to become known in the speaking world, especially in the entrepreneurial speaking conferences, as the guy who just always brings it. And by purposefully saying that to myself, I, number one, got the training to make sure I could support that. But number two, I would go above and beyond at these conferences. Not only would I go and attend and speak, and I would speak for free at first, but then I started to get paid for it. I would not only attend these conferences, but I would make sure to arrive a little bit early so I can get to know the audience and have them have a little bit of access to me. And then even afterwards, not just jetting after I speak, but going in there and purposefully getting into the audience. And I started to build relationships with those people, and those conference directors all started to talk about me with each other. Oh, you got to invite Pat to your conference because he like stays the whole time and he makes your audience feel great. Like he really goes above and beyond. Not only that, he gives a great presentation too. And that's kind of, fast forward years later, now I'm able to kind of create my own stage, which is pretty amazing. But I think the other thing that I started to become known for really was the podcasting stuff. And I had started podcasting in 2010, but never really leaned into it as somebody who was teaching it until 2016. And then in 2017, I created an online course called Power Up Podcasting. And now I've just leaned into it even more because people have been enjoying how I teach it, both for free on YouTube, but especially in my online course, Power Up Podcasting. I also do some fast track workshops here in San Diego. And what's really cool is as I go into different spaces, like I'm experimenting with YouTube now, expert YouTube creators, people with millions of followers are like, oh, Pat, dude, you're the podcast guy. Like, can you help me with my podcast? I'll help you out with your video stuff. And it's like, whoa, this is crazy. So leaning into the podcast stuff is getting really great. And now I'm sort of leaning toward in the future, like wanting to become known as not just like the Flynn great, amazing family event kind of guy, but also somebody who's really focused on education and changing education in the US and sort of expanding outside of business even to help in ways that I think that we can make an impact.
Yeah, the journey is so cool to see from the outside of just how many pivots that you were making. And one question I have is, were there any hesitations, especially as you're kind of diving into the podcast guy, because there's many people that, are teaching, guiding people about podcasts. Did you have any fears and hesitations of coming into a space that people were already, and even close friends who were already teaching and sharing about how to, launch and create your own podcast?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and 2015, I think it was, I created a podcasting tutorial that just lived on YouTube. And that was my way of just like anybody who wanted my help for podcasting, I was just like, oh, just go to YouTube channel. And that sufficed. And that did really well for a little bit, but I wasn't making money off of that. It wasn't a course. I was focused on writing books and speaking and my other courses and or affiliate marketing and all these other things. But people kept asking like, Pat, I need more and I want it from you. And I would always go, no, like go to John Lee Dumas or no, go to Cliff Ravenscraft. They're great. They help me out. And I didn't want to create something that I felt like other people were able to serve people with. And it wasn't until I started creating online courses that I realized like, whoa, I'm actually potentially doing people a disservice because they don't want the John Lee Dumas style. They don't want the Cliff Ravenscraft style. These are other amazing podcasters who you can learn from as well. Like there are some people, especially my super fans, who want to learn from me and only me. And I had to realize that. And thanks to some help from a lot of friends and mentors, I was able to get the courage to finally create an online course. And I was worried because I wanted to respect the friends that I had who were in that space already. Couple were very welcoming. They were like, dude, like we live in this abundant world, and they understood that people wanted to learn from me and that they couldn't teach them because they wanted to learn from me. And they were very supportive. Others were a little taken aback a little bit because they had seen this as sort of like a potential competitor to what they were doing. But, you know, after some good conversation and back and forth, you know, we all realized that we each have our own unique strengths and that's what we should lean into. And so now that the course has been out for couple years now, we just passed the $2 million mark in terms of overall earnings. And that's a fun stat. But I think the biggest stat is just every week seeing brand new wins in the Facebook community and people starting their podcasts and people like Sophie Walker, who started her Australian birth story podcast, who just passed, I think 3 million downloads not too long ago. From Melissa. I want to like just tell all these stories.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of the students. Like it definitely got
you too.
To launching. And you know what I love? I've heard that before too. It's like where people want to learn from you. They've built a relationship and trust with you. And I love kind of like the three things that I see in you becoming the go-to person is becoming a resource. Mm-hmm. Being able to share transparency and failures to help other people along the journey. And then you getting your own training to become excellent at that thing that you want to be known for. And I think that that's really powerful just to kind of remember that path of how you've become that go-to person over many times. And from a Superfans perspective, was there any fears that you had in making these pivots where, okay, well, maybe my audience is going to be confused or they're not going to follow this next thing that I'm going through? How did you navigate that?
I mean, honestly, you just do you. And if you build Superfans and if you have the commonality of that value and that mission that's always been there, which is what like how you make people feel and make them feel like they belong, it doesn't really matter what you do. They'll follow you. Like I remember, and big shout out to Cliff again, Cliff Ravenscraft. He has this amazing story of creating his first podcast. His first thing online was a podcast about the show Lost. Remember that show?
Yes.
Well, it was a great show. And his podcast was with his wife, and they would kind of talk about the episodes after they came out and share their theories and all these kinds of things and have these really great discussions. Well, they started to build Superfans, but they found him because they had this common language of Lost. But after Lost was over, he started some podcasts about his family and some other things, podcasting. And some of those people who had found him through that Lost podcast followed him over to all those things and are still with him today, which is really amazing. So it doesn't really matter what you do. If you are always you and you're genuine, people will follow you for that. And it may be that commonality that like Lost was it for Cliff. For me, it was like sharing business tips and strategies at first. If you just remain you and you truly care about serving others and you make people feel like they belong, they're going to be inspired by you and want to continue that path with you and support you along the way too. And that's the cool thing about building Superfans that I think, like, especially the future of business. I think the future of business is building these amazingly tight-knit tribes, these groups, these communities. And we're starting to see this like even from the Facebook land where they're saying that, groups are more important now than pages or even your status updates. Like it's all about groups and communities. And I highly believe that. And I think that businesses should plan for an experience from the moment people find you to create fans in your brand, because those people, no matter what happens to technology, no matter what happens to your email list, even if your website were to go away or you lose your entire Instagram account overnight, your fans are going to make sure that you're in their life and they'll find you. They'll support you. They're like an insurance policy. They're going to be the ones who, when you put on an event and you have no description of what's going on, they're going to sign up for it anyway, just like it happened with FlynnCon. They're going to be the ones who, when you come out with a new product, they're going to be on the wait list before you even launch it. And they're going to be the ones who are waiting outside that store in line, just like those crazies at the Apple store when it comes out, right? Like that's where you should be building. And yes, SEO is important. Yes, traffic is important, conversion rates and all those fun things that we marketers pay attention to, and their numbers and they're fun and they're exciting. But what's cool is if you build for Superfans, all those numbers are going to increase anyway.
Yeah.
And not only that, you're going to get people who are ambassadors in your brand, who are going to bring brand new people in for you, who are going to be much more qualified to be and much more excited to be in that community, because they'll already have a friend who speaks the same language, and you're just the leader who's creating that space for all that to happen. So I'm all in on Superfans, and I always have been. I've always been creating those experiences over time. I just didn't know how to kind of structure it and format that in a way where I could share it with people. But I've definitely created the how-to book for Superfans. Yes.
Yeah. And talking about your new book, what has been challenging and exciting about this book writing process? Because this is your third book.
This is my third book. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have Will It Fly, Let Go, and now Superfans. And I'm geeking out on book writing because I'm writing my second book, which is so different than
about that. Oh my gosh.
But it's so different than a green smoothie recipe book where it's like beautiful photos and here's the recipe and here's some tips. So how would you compare your writing process for Superfans compared to your first and second book that you wrote?
Well, Let Go, which was my first one, it was just published as a Kindle book, and it was kind of an outlier. It was a little bit easier to write because it was just my story, and I've told my story many times before online and on interviews. So it was very simple for me to sort of format that into a book and a memoir and publish that. So I'm not going to count that. My first real business book was Will It Fly, and that took 2.5 years total from inception. And I gave up a bunch of times, and it was our good friend Azul who really coached me through the process. And like we talked about earlier, whenever I want to do something, I just, have realized that you need to find the people who've done it before to help you and guide you. And so I found Azul and I hired him to coach me through the book writing process. And he really helped me break down this very big idea of a book and this grand sort of collection of 50,000 words, and really break it down into smaller blog posts. Because I was a blogger initially, and I knew how to write blog posts, and I didn't know how to write a book. And he's like, just treat each chapter like an individual blog post, like exactly the same process down to what tools you use to write blog posts. And it was that moment that things finally started to happen. And that was a long process. I mean, that was written between the hours of 5:30 and 7:30 in the morning before the kids got up and went to school. That was the only time I had to write that. And it was such a chore, and it was a grind. And I'm very thankful I got through it, because that book has been sold to tens of thousands of people all around the world. It's published in 7 different languages now, and it went on to become a Wall Street Journal bestseller, even as a self-published book, which was pretty incredible.
And that video trailer for that book, it just always makes me
thank you.
If I ever watch it right now, I'm like,
we got our son involved, and there's some fun stories about that, which we'll save for later. But then with Superfans, I was like, okay, I've done this before, but honestly, I don't have 2 hours in the morning to write this right now. This is going to take forever. Let me see what other people are doing who are strapped for time for writing books. And this was over a 1.5 years ago when this book idea started. First of all, I was kind of validated that this was going to be a great topic, because this was a topic that I gave on stage before. So I knew the material a little bit, but I also knew that this was a topic that people really resonated with. And my job was to take that presentation, expand on it, go deeper into it, and turn it into a book format. But I just didn't have the time to do that, especially with my courses. I was huge on courses the last couple of years, still am. And all the speaking I was doing with the family, of course, I don't want to take my time away from them. So I hired a company, and there are these companies out there where you pay tens of thousands of dollars. They don't just take the topic and go, and then they give you a book. I mean, it's months and months of interviews. And I love that idea, because I could do interviews in the car or, at lunch or whatever. So in these interviews, these people who were interviewing me could pull out these stories and could hear my voice. And so that by the time it's all put together, it's like, it's still my book. It's just somebody helped me process it and take the stories out of my brain and the teachings and help me write those down instead of me having to write those down. And they could probably even do it better. And I was like, okay, this is a good idea. I had a lot of friends who were using it. So, 6 months of that, and then a 2-month waiting period to get like a first draft back so I could read it, make sure it's my voice. I was so excited to get that first chapter back and read it. I was like, how cool is this? It's like my voice. And honestly, it wasn't my voice. I wasn't happy with it. I was like, wow, I can't keep going with this. It has to change a little bit. I wouldn't say these words. And I don't say things like that, even though they pulled all of this out of my interview. So we went back and they tried again with a different writer, same interviews. They listened to all the interviews. They got my voicing, they did it, and they gave me another manuscript for the first couple chapters. I was like, okay, this is great. We'll learn from the first go around. And I read it and I was like, man, this is still not me. This is crazy because a lot of these stories in Superfans are very personal, and it just didn't feel like me. It didn't feel right. And so I kind of scrapped the idea. And then they reached back out to me 6 months later and were like, hey, let's try again. Let's do another set of interviews and see if that does anything. We did the whole thing. We sped it up a little bit. It was like 3 months of interviews and 1 month of writing. I got the script back again. And I was like, I'm sorry. This is just a sign that I have to write this book myself. And then November 2018 came around and I was like, okay, there's this thing every November that happens called NaNoWriMo, which is short for National Novel Writers Month. And it's like a challenge every month that writers put on themselves to, in a community, kind of write a book in a month, 50,000 words in a single month, writing every single day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this challenge. You know a lot about challenges, obviously.
Yes.
They get people to move. And I was like, this is going to get me to move. And so I wrote every day. First week was like just a few hundred words a day, but I was writing and I started to see the numbers climb. And I was also holding myself accountable by publishing my numbers on my Instagram and on my Twitter account, how many numbers I was writing every day, that I was participating in this challenge. And no, I didn't finish by November, but I was able to finish by mid-December. And it helped that I had talked about it a lot. It did help that I already had an outline. So it wasn't like I just wrote an entire book in a month and a half, but I kind of did. And then I just gave it to my team, and we've been spending the last several months putting it together, editing it, copy editing it, designing the cover, and really making it great. And this time we're using a company called New Type Publishing, which is kind of a hybrid model between self-publishing and traditional. I keep the rights of the book. It's self-published. Royalties are more favorable than a traditional, but I also get distribution in Barnes & Noble and Target and other places. So we're experimenting with that, but so far so good. The only trouble with this go around versus with Will It Fly was print on demand. If somebody orders it on Amazon, Amazon prints it and then ships it. This one I had to order bulk ahead of time. So there was a larger number of investment capital needed up front. It's still like $3 a book, but predicting 15,000 copies in the first couple of weeks. That's $45,000 that we have to put for something that we don't know if it's going to,
right.
It may not sell. We're predicting it will, but it's just a different process. But the book writing process became a lot easier when I challenged myself to get it done within a certain amount of time. And then I had people holding me accountable to it.
Yeah. And I will post the link in the show notes to the video. I just watched your video because, I'm in the writing process too, of like writing 25 to 30, 60 minutes a day. And it was so inspiring just to watch how like not every day was easy. And also that you brought your super fans into the process. You all actually rewarded people, right? As they would guess how many words you would write each day.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So whoever was closest to guess without going over would win a pin from me. We have these pins that we give away on our YouTube channel. We just was like, hey, let's just do this for fun. And so it was a little bit of extra work, but it really made me feel like I had to keep it going because people were expecting this. And I made a big announcement. Hey, every day this month, you might win something. And it was funny to see people guess at the beginning. They're like 2,500 words, 3,000 words in a day. And then the first day was like 400 words written.
Right.
And I was like, nobody got a pin that day. And then the next day people were like, 400,
yeah,
800. Like I was able to bring them back down to earth. But, it was fun. And I think the other part of this was a marketing strategy. Hey guys, I'm writing a book right now. It's coming out soon. Join me in this process. What's the book about? Oh, I'm not going to tell you now, but I'm in the middle of it. So of course people get curious, they get involved. And as I say in my Superfans book, when you can get people involved, then they're going to invest. And so that's exactly what I was doing. And that, like, I would recommend, and you're doing that right now. You had mentioned that you're writing this book on this podcast, which people who haven't heard that yet have now heard that, and now they're curious and they're going to wonder, and it's going to help you throughout the entire process.
Yeah. And I know the way that you approach connecting with your audience is so powerful and inspiring and also easy to implement. For someone, what would be like one action item that you would encourage someone to do in order to either attract those super fans or nurture those super fans?
Yeah. I mean, super fans aren't created overnight. You don't listen to a song for the first time. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan of that band. That doesn't happen. You listen to the song, you resonate with the lyrics, and then you get curious and you want to listen to more. And then you get it on repeat. And then you start to learn about the artist. And then you start to go to the concerts. And then you start to buy all the swag. And then you start to find other clubs where you can talk about these people. And then you go to the concert VIP. And then you go backstage. And then all of a sudden you spend like $100,000 because it was a song, right? And it happens over time. And that's why one of the chapters in the beginning is called to learn the lyrics of your audience. And this stems back to a story that April, my wife, told me about how she became a fan of the Backstreet Boys, because she's a huge fan. She has literally a giant Tupperware bin in her closet with action figures, programs, framed pictures, all this crap about Backstreet Boys. And I'm an NSYNC fan, so it's kind of somehow we still were able to build a relationship.
Oh, I love that. I have an episode about how I met Justin Timberlake. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
But so she has this box. So the thing is, she was like, I remember specifically because she was 15. She had just broken up with her boyfriend, and there was no Spotify or iPod back then. It was just the radio, and she had heard a song on the radio in that moment that she heard many times before, but she never listened to it. She never really cared about the song until now, because this song, every lyric in this song that was playing was everything she was going through in that moment with this terrible breakup. And that song was Quit Playing Games with My Heart by the Backstreet Boys. And we businesses or anybody trying to build a following of any kind, you might have the best solutions in the world. You might care about your audience so much, but unless you're using the right lyrics, you're not going to resonate with your audience. And it was Jay Abraham who said, if you can define the problem better than your target customer, they're going to automatically assume you have the solution. You want people to find you. And the moment they find you, really quickly, you have to have them go, oh, she gets me. Or, oh man, nobody understands me better. And when you have that, then they're going to continue to come back. And that's when they subscribe. That's when they follow. That's when they start to share you. Another thing that you can do, one of my favorite things to do, I'll tell you this story really quick. Back before I became an entrepreneur, I was in architecture, and I would often spend my lunch hours reading personal finance blogs. I was a huge personal finance blog nerd. I think this was back when you would subscribe to RSS feeds to get content every day. I was subscribed to like 30 different personal finance blogs. And there was one in particular that I didn't follow because I was just a little put off by the name of it. And the name of that blog was called iwillteachyoutoberich.com by Ramit Sethi. I was in the camp of, oh no, this is a slow process. This, you got to get rich slowly, which was the name of another blog that was my favorite at the time by J.D. Roth. But anyway, Ramit, who owned this I Will Teach You to Be Rich blog, I was put off by the name. I'm like, no, like this guy's a little aggressive or, whatever. But then he came out with a blog post that really intrigued me. It said like, call your cable company and save 25% in 15 minutes or something like that. The name was better than that. But I read this post, and essentially you call your cable company, you read the script that he lays out for you just word for word, and you'll likely save money on your cable bill. So I did that during lunch one day. I came across this article because people were sharing it, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I called my cable company, and I was able to, in 15 minutes, save 25% of my cable bill, like literally. And I was just like blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, after a year, this is like thousands. After like 40 years, Ramit saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars, like right now in 15 minutes. Now compare that win and how quick it was versus what all these other blogs were saying. All these other blogs were saying, oh no, like number one, don't drink that latte. Put those $3 a day into your savings account and invest that and earn 6%. And then after 40 years, when you're 65, then you can reap the rewards.
Right.
Right. So it's like, okay, which ones am I going to be more excited about? And so what ended up happening was I just dove right into his stuff. I read every single blog post of his, and it was because he gave me that quick win. And when you're in business or when you're trying to build a following, everybody's fighting for everybody else's attention right now. Everybody wants everybody to join their groups, but it's the ones who provide that win up front that are going to get paid attention to more. and there's psychology behind this. There's been studies and books written about the small, quick win. Go for the small, quick win. And that's when you finally have people as a part of your subscriber base. They're active in your user base. They're not quite superfan status, but from there you can do some things to get them there. Number one, making people feel like they belong, giving people a voice, letting people speak up, making people feel like they have a part in something. This is why user-generated content is so huge for building fans. I mean, if you look up Lego in YouTube, you're going to find tens of millions of other people, not Lego, who are basically marketing Lego for them because they're fans of Lego, right? Having meetups and hosting events like the one I've hosted or the ones that you've hosted before, where you can bring your community together to make them feel like they belong even more to something. That's going to get them to feel like they have an additional experience beyond just a normal subscriber. Bringing people behind the scenes. People love to know what's happening behind the scenes. And when you can take people into a little factory tour of what you do and share your team or your process or how you do what you do, not only are people going to see the quality of what you put into, but they're going to see stuff that not everybody else is seeing. And they're going to feel like they have some insider knowledge, and that makes people feel special. Whenever you can get people feel like they're behind the velvet rope, like that's awesome. And that makes them feel even more excited. And then making people feel like they have a part in where your business is going, even down to the micro level. Like Jada, one thing you could do when your book comes out is like when you have your designer come up with a few concepts, like have your audience vote or share with what their thoughts are and get them involved, because not only that, now they're curious, now they're involved, now they're going to be invested. So one thing that I like to do in a similar way, I've done that with creating launch teams for my books. And so bringing people inside, giving them access to the manuscripts early as a part of the launch team in exchange for hopefully a review on the other side of it. But also they help provide an insight on, oh, this story, you forgot to tell, you forgot to share this part, or, oh, this would be cool if it went here instead. Lego, even big companies do this too. Lego has a website called Lego Ideas where anybody listening to right now can create a Lego creation with our Legos at home. And whatever it is, we post it on legoideas.com, or I think it's ideas.lego.com. Anyway, if the community votes it up to 10,000 likes, then Lego will actually manufacture that product, like your creation, and will give you a royalty. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that crazy? So
Yeah.
they have like hundreds of designers on staff, but they have hundreds of thousands of designers in the world. And they know that, they acknowledge that, and they want that, they facilitate that. And we can do the same thing in our business too, in sort of a micro level, which is awesome. And like all these little, like this book is literally just like a recipe list of all the things that you could do to enhance and heighten the experience that people have. And then my favorite thing is that, like, we could all do this right now. You have likely followers and people who follow your brand on Instagram, like spending 15 minutes at the end of every single week, going to your followers on Instagram, sending them a direct message with a video and just saying, hey, I was just thinking about you and just want to say thanks again for being a part of the tribe. And if you need anything, let me know. Like literally less than 10 seconds. They're going to be blown away that you've just taken a little bit of time to think about them on an individual basis. And those become the moments that people share, that they remember. And those are the moments that they aren't getting from other people who want their attention too. Yeah. So we could all do that right now.
I love that, the initiation, because, I talk about no comment left behind. So it's reactionary, right? It's like, oh, someone talks to me and then I respond with a video or an audio message. But I love the idea of initiating that conversation in that more personal one-to-one interaction.
Right. It's like at a restaurant, right? You're at a restaurant, you're drinking water. The worst thing to happen is you get to the bottom of that glass and you're like, where's the waiter? Like, I'm so thirsty, right? Like you don't want that. And I think your followers are smart enough to never let it get to that point, right? That's not good. But then there's the one where, okay, the person goes, hey, excuse me, waiter, can I have some water, please? And you're accessible. You're right there. And that's great too. But we could get better than that. We can get better than just on request,
being
right?
Proactive and
proactive, right?
Yeah.
So what you could do instead is you want to treat it as, hey, that person's drinking the water. They're not even done yet. But you go over there with a pitcher and fill it to the top without them even asking. That's the kind of treatment that you can give your people right now. And we don't do that for some reason. And it's because I think we don't see these people. We don't see the glass almost empty. But we always have the opportunity to be proactive, to initiate and be the waiter that fills that glass before they even ask.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to just put a highlight on with the Ramit, and I love Ramit. He's super.
Yeah, he's been, we're like good friends now.
Right. But I love that idea of that he repelled you initially, and that it's like he wrote that one song that like got you hooked, and then you wanted to listen to every other album. So just for everyone to think about, even if you feel like you've gotten it wrong or you haven't gotten that traction yet, to just keep writing and connecting, because not every song is going to be a hit to every person, but we have to keep creating and serving and connecting in that way, and being able to help people get that small win, which I think is very, very important. And what I teach in Build Your Challenge for, to like get that small, easy win, that then they have the confidence and the momentum to keep going and going deeper. And then you can invite them into an offer because they're like, I can do this.
Mm-hmm. To expand on what you were saying about Ramit, like I didn't like him at first because, I mean, the name is off-putting and he even realizes that now, but he's kind of way too into it. Just like Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Workweek, he would change it if he could. But Ramit was very on one side of the spectrum. He wasn't in the middle. He could have created content similar to all these other guys. But what I love about Ramit is he was so kind of just plant that flag. And this is my way. This is what I'm standing up for, and I'm going to get hate for it, and that's okay. And it did take that one song or that one post to help me realize like what he really meant and what he stood for. But he never broke that, and he still hasn't broken that. And when you follow Ramit's brand, it's very clear what his goals are and what his definition of rich is and how he can help you. It's about the big wins. It's not about cutting like your latte habit. It's about getting a raise at your job. It's about starting a business on the side so that you can get these bigger wins and that'll help you with your finances versus just like little penny pinching here and there. And it took me a while, but he never bent. He could have easily just gone, gosh, like all these other personal finance bloggers are way bigger. They're huge and they have all these people, but all they're talking about is 401ks and 529s and all this boring stuff that Ramit just didn't want to succumb to. And so his style, and this is something I'm trying to learn too, Jada, it's just like, what do I stand for? And I've always been a people pleaser my entire life. And I think that has held me back a little bit in terms of what my brand can become known for. Because if you try to please everybody, you're going to be average. You're going to not actually provide enough help to the niche people that you need to provide help to. If you try to please everybody, you're actually going to please nobody.
Yeah, I can raise my hand to that as well. The people pleaser. It's like I have a lot inside me, that rant and that fuel. I think this would be a great place to close this conversation is, what are those things that you've been afraid to take a stand for that now you're ready to really own and say, this is what I believe in?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm becoming more and more the proponent that, things like search engine optimization, conversion rates, all these like math-based marketing strategies, like I like them, but I think we could do way more with Superfans. This is why Superfans comes out. This is my flag in the ground right now. Like you have to build for those experiences in your brand. Like you have to. And if you aren't, you're going to fail. You will fail. You can benefit so much by having a group of people who will follow you everywhere. That's your insurance policy as a business, are those super fans. Also podcasting. I was always like, I always knew that I could step into that role of, the best way to market your stuff is to podcast. And I'm putting my foot in the ground saying the best way to market your stuff is a podcast, because that's how you can, guess what, build these amazing relationships with your super fans. And it supports it versus, there's, for a while I was like, whatever you are excited about, like go there because that's where you're going to have the most energy to be. And that's not helping people. Like I want to be somebody who goes, you want to start a business? Okay, great. Number one, find that target market, understand their problems and get them results, and use a podcast to help create content surrounding those results, surrounding their problems. Bring your fans on to your show. That's another thing I talk about in the book, is putting a spotlight on your fans, not you, but your fans, because they're going to bring more people in like them. People are going to go, oh, that person's just like me. And those are a couple of the things that I'm taking a stand for. I'm also starting to become a little bit more comfortable with the idea of, especially in the realm of education, what I think should be. I think, for example, entrepreneurship should be taught in every school, just like reading, science, and math. Whether a person becomes an entrepreneur or not, it's just like, hey, some people aren't going to become scientists either. But those skills, that knowledge can be really helpful for life. And in my opinion, entrepreneurship can be even more helpful than some of those other things as well. So I'm getting to learn a little bit more about taking ownership in what I want to say and really, really owning those things.
Oh, I love it so much. And Pat, you continue to inspire me, but I just love that you've made this decision and this stake in the ground to be that go-to resource, to walk your talk, and then to also share a pathway and inspiration for people, even through the book Superfans. Like I just know, I remember the keynote that you did and being able to turn it into something so much deeper with so many more examples to guide people to connect with humans in a deeper way beyond just the bottom line, which it's like that is the result of really connecting, serving, and helping people. So thank you for showing up in that way.
Yeah, no, and thank you for allowing me to share this, and even just talking it out is helping me even figure it out even more. So I appreciate the platform and your people, and for allowing me to share Superfans, which again, I'm all in on right now. And for those of you who eventually find the book, you'll see on the cover 3 words at the top. It says followers, subscribers, customers, but they're all crossed out. And then it says big, bold Superfans. And it's like, let's start building Superfans, guys. And I know a lot of you are super fans of Jada as well. And I'm a fan of yours as well. I mean, I'm just so inspired by you and what you're creating, and to be able to have a little bit of an impact on your story with the Accelerator group, and just continually as we continue to become smart business owners over time. I'm here for you. I'm here for your people, and whatever you need help with, I'm here to support you.
Oh, thanks, Pat. And where can people go to get Superfans?
Yeah, if you go to yoursuperfans.com, you could check it out there. And then also Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and I think it's actually going to be even at Target and a couple airports, which is kind of cool. I would love to see it at a Target, because I'm just a big fan of Target too. And hoping that the book makes its way into somebody's shopping cart when they only meant to get shampoo.
Yes.
$400 worth of other stuff. Maybe the book will end up in the cart as well. I don't know.
It totally will. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pat. And I can't wait for more people to start building their own Superfans.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your heart and attention and listening to Lead with Love. You can always get the links and resources mentioned in each episode over at leadwithlovepodcast.com, so that you can build a sustainable business and live a creative life on your terms. If this message, Leading with Love, resonates with you, and you want to take a stand for remembering that there are humans with beating hearts behind the numbers, I would love for you to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people spread more love in the world, which we really, really need. I also love hearing from you. So as you're listening, take a screenshot, share your favorite takeaway, and tag me on Instagram and Facebook at Jada Selner. I really appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.